Good morning, good morning. I've had a bit of a cough, so that's why I'm sounding a bit croaky, so you'll have to excuse me if if I have to have a cough, but how are you? I hope you're well. Haven't done one of these for a while because, to be honest with you, obviously with Christmas and everything, not much has been going on. Let's just defrost the windscreen a bit. Yeah, so I hope you're well. We're back into the post-Christmas routine. Basically what that means is the first week after Christmas, everybody cancels because they find their plans have changed over the Christmas period and don't really want a dental appointment on the 4th of January or something. So, but that's not a problem because we know that we're very busy now. So what's happening is that people are bringing their appointments forwards because they've got they need root treatments doing and things like that, and so they want them done straight away. So root treatment's doing quite well for us at the moment. We still do the odd crown and stuff like that, the odd extraction, but I'd say our bread and butter at the moment is root fillings. That's because it's funny, you know, when I qualified, most of the work was sort of checkups. Checkups were free, and everybody had a pretty poor diet in terms of cakes, biscuits, and sweets and fizzy drinks, and so we were constantly doing fillings. Now it's changed a lot, you know, thanks to the various chief dental officers that we've had, and it's mostly, you know, people have got a massive backlog of work in their mouths. You know, they've decided not to come, either because their dentist has gone private or the economy's in a downturn at the moment. We've got the most ridiculous prime minister at the moment, Keir Starmer, who's basically a lawyer, an uncharismatic, greasy-haired lawyer, as David Mellor described him. And David Mellor should know because he's a greasy-haired lawyer himself. But 65% of the country didn't vote for the Labour Party, and yet they've got in with this massive majority. And the first thing he's done is he's given away some overseas territory called the Chagos Islands. He's given it away to I forget who he's given it to. I know it begins with M. Not Malaysia, I don't think. Mauritius. Anyway, and not really said why he's doing it. There's a massive Great American base on the Chagos Islands, Diego Garcia, which they use for operations in the area. So, and not only are we giving it away, we're actually paying them to take it. And he hasn't really explained to the British public at all why he's doing it, except that there's some obscure legal judgment in some obscure European court, which they've used as a justification. Although, you know, we've jumped to attention and decided to comply with it. Unlike any other country, I mean, Americans, for example, they help negotiate treaties and then they just never sign them, so they never feel bound by them. The Europeans sign treaties, and they do sign them, but then they just ignore them. You know, they don't feel bound by them. We in the British Isles, we sign treaties and we observe them to the letter, mostly to our disadvantage. The more disadvantage there is to us in observing these treaties, the quickly we jump to attention and shoot ourselves in both feet. So, I mean, if you take the law governing international shipping and the freedom of ships to move around in international waters, mostly negotiated and agreed upon by the Americans, but then and signed by everybody, but not signed by the Americans. So now the Americans are going around taking over ships on the high seas where they're supposed to have freedom of passage. They're requisitioning Venezuelan oil tankers and etc., etc. So the latest is Trump. Trump is causing consternation. Let's put it that way: consternation, even amongst his own supporters, because he's very much a sort of a shoot first, think later type bloke. And the latest thing he's done is he's criticised the UK for giving away the Chagos Islands. They're all just about to go off to Davos for their usual annual gathering of the the hidden governments that really run the world, if you want to look at it like that. And Keir Starmer, who normally will go anywhere abroad rather than hang around domestically to face the criticism of his domestic policies, has now decided the one meeting that we all want him to go to, because Trump is going to go there, and they're going to talk about possible American tariffs on 8 NATO countries for their refusal to go along with his idea to buy Greenland. The one meeting we want him to go along to, he's decided that he's not attending. So neither are the Norwegians or the Danes. And Trump is, he's the most amazingly, how can I put it? It's like, I've always said, and one of the reasons why I supported Trump was because he's the answer to what would you do? If you were allowed to rule the world for 5 years, what would you do? And the answer is you'd probably behave a bit like Donald Trump, say, oh, I'd make it, I'd make, I don't know, sweets illegal, or I would make councillors personally responsible for putting their houses on the line for filling potholes and stuff like that. All sort of a load of arbitrary stuff that, like an 8-year-old would think up. My personal theory is that because of the very particular way he got elected, in other words, he got elected for a 5-year term, he got a load of really bad advice from the establishment because he had no contacts really, and he appointed a load of advisors who he shouldn't have done, like John Bolton, the Hawks, and the people who are really working against him. And as a result, and also thought that 5 years was a long time, and expected to have another 5 years on top of that, as most American presidents are elected for 2 consecutive terms. If they are elected for 2 terms, it's usually consecutive. And then got slung out at the end of the 5 years, really having been stabbed in the back by most of his staff, and having really not achieved much of any significance. And then he spent 5 years in the wilderness under Sleepy Joe Biden, and then got re-elected. And so now what he's done, he's like literally, he's behaving like a bloke who has literally got 5 years to live. He's like, if he had cancer with a 5-year prognosis, he could not be working any faster. And so he's doing everything, he's tweeting day and night, he's flying here, he's flying there. He's really got no time to spare. And someone who's moving at this pace, someone who really believes that he's going to make a mark on history as a president. And in order to do that, you have to do the big things. You have to buy Greenland, or you have to, I don't know, take over Canada, or you have to change from a tariff-free world economy, to an economy that's based on tariffs, and you have to do things like dissolve the so-called special relationship between America and the US and the UK. He's not. How can I put it? That most people see. I think the thing about sort of being forward-looking and being able to see into the future, it's not so much that you're like Mystic Meg type, you've got a crystal ball type arrangement. It's more that you just have to look at what's not sustainable in the present, what's not what things that are things that you can do now that you probably won't be able to do in the future. That's what it boils down to. And also have a bit of a half of a mind for things that you're starting to be able to do now that will become much easier in the future. So things like the universal availability of water. I mean, we've got friends in Canada. I mean, we know places like Palestine and Africa are short of water, but you wouldn't have thought that Western Canada was short of water. You know, they rely on all the ice running down off the Rockies there, and basically most of the ice is gone. So, you know, water. This is not. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know or you shouldn't know. Water is a scarce resource, and it's always known it's going to be scarce. And the other thing is meat. I mean, the meat is so incredibly inefficient to grow. I mean, it's lovely. Everybody likes their McDonald's, don't they? But in perhaps in 50 years' time, McDonald's restaurants will be quite rare because meat will be quite rare, unless somebody comes up with a really acceptable substitute. So that's the spirit in which we're looking at 2026. We're thinking like, okay, what is being done now that probably won't be able to be done in the future. In dentistry, I think I was saying to a patient yesterday, like we're quite resilient in terms of the business model. We are not really susceptible to being in America. In the Sunday Times, the Stelzer, I think, is their American correspondent, and he said for the first time there's evidence that AI is having an impact on employment. There's been, lots of people have been saying, oh, it's going to be the end of the world, AI is going to take everybody's jobs. Well, productivity in the US is going up. And that's because tariffs on foreign goods now mean that it's relatively more cost effective to manufacture in the US. So in America, they're hiring. Productivity is going up. I'm sorry, I'll rephrase that. They're not hiring. Productivity is going up, but they're not hiring. AI adoption has jumped from 30 to something like 40% of firms are now using AI, and they're not hiring anybody, and yet productivity has jumped. So it's probably the first clear sign that people they're hiring AIs instead of hiring bodies, basically. That's what it boils down to. So that's, again, you've got to look at that as a trend. Now, could I hire an AI instead of, say, a receptionist or something? Would people be happy talking to an AI receptionist or making an appointment with an AI receptionist? Could I just get rid of the telephone receptionist and do everything online and with some sort of unified vertical software package? Yeah, I mean, I can see that coming. I can see, because at the moment we're using a variety of different, we have our vertical dentist package, which keeps the notes, stores the x-rays and records the appointments. But that is just a database. I mean, that's all that is, just a database functionality. And technically we should be able to do all of that. I mean, obviously it has to be done in a secure way, but technically, all of that could be done with just any sufficiently configurable database program. And there are plenty of service industries like hairdressing and I don't know, anything, doctors, whatever, that sell time and make appointments and things like that. So I'm sure there will be and take payments. But in order to take payments, we have a different system. We use Square. And then what we have to do is we have to manually transfer the receipts over from Square to the dental system, which is It's not difficult, but I mean, it just has to be done manually. It doesn't need to be done manually. If someone invented a system that, recorded appointments and also sent invoices and accepted merchant services facilities, so it would accept cards and stuff like that, then that's the ideal system. But then you've still got, at the end of the day, my receptionist, I still think, brings skills. And people value human interaction. You do not want, when you go on a website, say, like, do you want to talk to someone, and then realize that you've just been put through to some automated AI type system, which is never going to deal with your query. And the same way when you ring up, you're looking for, you really wait until you get to the endless stream of announcements about, if you ringing about this passport or that passport, then you need to visit our website, or we can't give you advice on this, can't give you advice on that. Really, you're just like looking for what button do I press to get through to a human, aren't you? And this is what we're doing with our human receptionist. She's there to provide the human interaction that private patients are paying for. And to be honest with you, private patients get what they want because they prepare to pay for what they want, and that's how everything gets funded. So a lot of hedge trimming been going on here, isn't there? As you can see, they use a flail mower, which is basically a bunch of weights on chains that are flung around and will mash up anything. So, I mean, there is possibilities for X-ray analysis. It would be nice to have an X-ray program. So far, I've dragged some X-rays onto the the better known AIs like ChatGPT and Grok and stuff like that. And they're hopeless. I mean, they really are hopeless. Not one of them is capable of doing any sort of decent analysis of an X-ray, an OPG or anything. I mean, we've got to the stage where they can just about recognise teeth, but everything's back to front. They don't even know, for example, that the left of the X-ray is the right-hand side of the patient. So dentistry, I think, as a profession, is fairly safe. We're not likely to be taken over by AI anytime soon. Our biggest threat, I would say, is just the economy. When the economy is doing well, people spend a lot of money on dentistry, and I know that because I was a dentist in the 1980s. And then, if you hadn't had all your child's teeth fissure sealed, 8 teeth fissure sealed at £10 a pop, then you were, it was child abuse. And £80, for a child in the 1980s was a lot of money. It's probably 160, probably these days be about £1,000. So fortunately, the good thing about dentistry, and I've mentioned this in the past, is that when the economy is doing really badly, and this is the problem, I do expect it to, under Sir Keir, I do expect it to carry on doing really badly because they really have not got the first clue what they're doing. There's socialists who believe that they can organise everything better. They can organise the price of money better. They can organise the supply of goods better. They can organise, government, anything that government's got a hand in is done better, according to them. They can organise the trains better. They can organise the traffic better. They can probably think that they could organise the weather better. And you can't disabuse people of this sort of stupidity until such time as the whole system collapses. And that's what saved dentistry in the end. It was not me campaigning on behalf of the GDPA or the DPA, but it was Barry Crockroft and the people in charge of the Department for Health that realised that they lost control of the system. and the system's righted itself. You know, it's dentists are now earning what dentists need to earn to do a decent job, and they're not earning that on the National Health Service, so that's why nobody's on it. So all in all, I would say we're looking at this from a fairly privileged point of view, in that we're pretty immune to the prevailing winds, which are affecting so many other people's jobs, such as AI. And yet we are we're looking forward to probably at least 2 or 3 more years of economic depression, which is going to, which means that we're not really going to have a bonanza time as dentists doing I don't know, cosmetic or orthodontics or whatever. We're going to be doing basic stuff. I mean, a lot of pain relief and a lot of root treatments, which I think is what I'm doing first of all. Anyway, nice to talk to you. I'll try and get on again if I can. All the best. Bye.